the N-word before we started?
No, but that's as good a spot as any to start. Hello, everyone. I am Arkatsuke. This is Deep Fried Smoothie with all of my favorite people. We have Feral J. We have,
Hi, I'm Feral J. You may recognize me from dick pics that I sent your mother.
and your father too. He doesn't discriminate.
But
He's very.
some very confusing to tell between.
Then we have Victor, otherwise known as Defantes the Elder on Twitter.
Hello.
And of
And
course,
I'm just tired and hungover Swede right now. So yeah.
So basically a Swede.
Yeah.
Now, is there a Swedish equivalent to Russia, like to vodka? Like, what is the stereotypical Swedish alcoholic beverage?
Goat milk.
Aquavit.
What would it be?
Aquavit.
Aquavit.
Yep.
Sounds so wholesome. Okay, and
yeah.
Of course, Jupiter, my favorite Jewish person in the world, with his stunning ensemble of matching yarmulke, and sure, I love it.
You should see the thong.
Yeah, I love. Yeah,
honest to God, I didn't even realize I was matching. Ever since I was single and not doing laundry, and this was my only shirt.
Oh my God!
Brought to you by Laundry Day.
Woolite, it does a body good. All right,
yeah.
So we're gonna try something a little different today. We're going to talk about several distinct topics, and if I actually get the gumption, I'm going to edit them, and you'll be watching these as 3 different little segments. So, oh yeah, the cat is in heat. Not this cat, that cat.
That cat is always
well, both of them are in heat, if we're being very honest.
True, but I don't usually meow. not
it's a Swedish cat, by the way.
Is what?
That is a Swedish cat, by the way. Who is in heat?
Yeah. The Swedish cat is in heat.
Yep.
Is it actually a Swedish cat?
Yeah.
You brought it?
Yeah, I brought it over.
Oh.
So
yeah.
On the subject.
So on the subject, Italian. Well, the black dog is Italian. The big yellow dog is Russian. I'm Swedish, and the cat is Swedish.
Wait, so you have an Italian dog and a Swedish cat. Were you trying to mirror PewDiePie and his Italian wife, but with pets?
Nope. And also the other dog that we have is a big Siberian dog. So yeah, he's actually born in Siberia.
Oh goodness! So he was
foreigners, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
He was born with a fur coat and a bottle of vodka.
Yeah, pretty
much. Over here, we're trying to make America furry again, I guess.
Okay.
Yep.
So, starting off, since we're talking about Swedish things, why don't we warm up with what we were saying earlier? So, Victor, you're telling me that everyone's favorite environmental messiah, Greta Thunberg, did I say that correctly?
No, it's Thunberg.
Thunberg.
It is.
Yeah, it's actually starting to get out of favor right now in this public.
Her star is descending. So tell us about this.
Well, I've only talked briefly. I mean, I haven't been in the country for that long right now. But as far as I can see from Swedish Twitterites and other media accounts and media in general, is that Greta's star is now starting to fall somewhat.
So what are people saying?
They're tired of basically hearing her blaming everyone else for everything, and they're also tired and very concerned about her status as well. She's autistic, and also that her family is starting to bug the shit out of people, and they're starting to become really tired of them.
So the Swedes have finally noticed what the rest of the world was already aware of, which is that Greta Thunberg is extremely annoying and full of shit.
Think about it, cats. Think about it like she's Jewish. It's Berg, like Goldberg. No, it is. It's Thunberg.
Quit trying to. Are you trying to Hebrew? You're trying to.
Tell me I'm wrong.
It's actually kind of correct.
I mean, like, yes, so it's a typical European thing where we're going to spell a name a certain way, but it's going to be pronounced another way. Not quite as bad as the French with the Bordeaux. Why the hell is there an X in
Oh, no,
Bordeaux?
there's a fucking nation of people that just wanted to cheat at Scrabble.
Well, that would be the
That's the damn
Polish.
truth.
They're
We
like,
have
this
a- we
X
have
is
a-
like 1,000,000 points. We're gonna put that shit in everything. We're gonna sprinkle that shit on like Parmesan cheese.
And you know what's fucked up? We have a place in Pittsburgh called North Versailles, but it's spelled North Versailles, like Versailles in France. But everyone
it's actually-
pronounces it North Versailles. You want to know why? We're not
Why?
weirdos. That's how it's pronounced.
I thought you were going to say it was full of hookers.
Well,
Yeah.
fat old suburbanites, but same thing.
Oh yeah, you know.
$20, yeah.
They both accept PayPal.
Yeah.
That-
But
that's-
anyway,
yeah.
what I can tell about this whole Greta thing is that actually Greta never really had a big support team to begin with. In Sweden, she never really had, especially not her family, because everyone, especially the ones who tend to vote on, well, more conservative options or at least right-wing options, are usually kind of like, oh no, not these people again. And the only reason that Greta got so much attention in the first place is because the SVT, the Swedish National Television Broadcasting, and so on, are full of very ideologically driven leftists and who are not afraid to use any means possible to actually promote their little stars. You can actually kind of think of this as well. I guess you all seen Metropolis, right? It's pretty much like the robot there.
Oh my God. Okay, you're talking about the silent film by I think it was Fritz
Yeah.
Hansen.
Yeah.
So you say okay. Well, hopefully this does not end the same way that film did. Have you seen Metropolis, Jupiter?
I haven't, but just to
What
say
happened?
something, Greta and Hansel, her freaky parents, they dropped her off and we talked about this in one episode, but I'm going to bring it up again because it bears repeating. They dropped her off at I believe, what was it, the UN building, something, and dropped her off there with a sign that they made, by the way. They wrote it all out. They have crafted her, their autistic daughter, and they dropped her off there, and then no one gave a fuck. And then a year later, she did the same thing, but this time, she not only had the backing from that mysterious-ass prince who also gave her this sailboat that she's been traveling the world on, this multi-million-dollar sailboat, and she had all this funding all of a sudden. It wasn't just the Swedish press. It was all of a sudden she was a superstar overnight and had almost $600 million in backing. Like, how did that happen?
Wait, she had 600 million?
Not given to her, but for the campaign, yeah. She had backing, she had backers that were up to 600 million. Her sailboat trips alone, plus the jet trips back for her
staff,
climate staff. She has a pool to draw on that's almost $500 million.
Yeah,
she hasn't used it yet, but yeah, she's Soros back. She has money coming from a Soros organization in Ukraine and what's it called, Cyprus.
Yeah,
Cyprus. Now, I didn't know there was a lot of money in Cyprus.
That's where all the money gets funneled through Cyprus.
Cyprus is kind of like the equivalent of the Cayman Islands, but in Europe. So yeah.
My man.
Okay.
My man.
So you're saying that. So Greta is. It's interesting. So she's receiving, let's call it dark money in the most literal sense, like money that could have been laundered, or we just don't know where a lot of it is coming from.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Cyprus has a big. There are two main islands in the Mediterranean that European and Middle Eastern billionaires, etc., use quite extensively. Those two are Cyprus and Malta. Both of them has really severe bank policies. So actually, it's kind of like what Switzerland used to be. And what?
Switzerland is not like that anymore?
Nope.
No, they cracked down on the Swiss banks.
Well, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, and also when it comes to everything else, in terms of Greta Thunberg, her policies have been highly questioned by not only true environmentalists and also by mostly economical politicians and everything else too, in terms of her actual contribution. And they're actually now starting to refer her to as well that she probably should not talk about everything that she is doing, and above all, not mix identity politics with environmentalist policies.
If only they had
So
said, if only they had said this in the beginning, like people might have taken
yeah,
her slightly more seriously. Not
yeah,
that I don't.
Well,
Yeah,
in me and Jay's neck of the woods, I might be wrong about this, but literally Jay could probably shoot a 50 cal to this location. They had Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's headquarters of operation, the Justice Democrats, and just like, see, Greta did the whole, I'm just worried about the world, how dare you? Just like AOC, but then AOC's handler came out and said, no, the Green New Deal isn't about the environment. It's about economic justice and social justice. It all comes back to that. There's no fucking climate crisis.
I wonder if there used to be a genuine environmental movement that was, because I don't remember environmentalism always being so.
There actually used to be, however, when it comes to, because the whole divide that we see in the whole Western world, no matter on which continent you are on, because of this, everything started to get intermingled, and I'm sorry to make a pun here, to intersect with one another. The whole environmentalist movement actually started in France, as far as I'm concerned,
Really?
with Brigitte Bardot, the old Hollywood star, when she started to campaign for animal rights. And
No, John Muir was the original.
Well, I mean, I think what he's talking about is the
Well, I
modern,
mean, what
what
I'm
we call
saying
the
is that,
modern environmental movement.
yeah. So,
Like, what do you, like, what's that? What
Well,
do you,
like,
I
as
don't,
far as
I
like,
don't think I know what that is.
well, because John Muir was like kind of I would call him a philosophical environmentalist. He
yeah,
wasn't connected with an actual political organization.
Oh, wait, no, if you're talking politics, no, but I mean, he saved how many national parks? He gave everything. I mean, if not for John Muir, there'd be no canyon. There'd be no Bryce National Park. There'd be no. John Muir was the original, like, don't touch our fucking parks guy.
Well, that's not it. I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the media whore sensation that environmentalists
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the modern visible political environmental movement, not the classical actually get something done environmental movement.
You know, actually, there's something that I just absolutely love about people like that.
What's that?
They will hop a jet, cross a couple of fucking continents on the way to show up at an environmental protest, get arrested, and basically released almost immediately because they're fucking rich. And they have the audacity to bitch at me about using a fucking plastic straw and where I might fall on the pecking order.
Yeah, it really is very much about, virtue signaling and control. I mean, like, all these things that get people excited about, as you said, what kind of straws you're using. Do you have a low flow toilet? Is your car a hybrid or an electric vehicle? These are not things that your average person thinks very much about and really does. What? What'd you say?
I told Jupiter to put his tender away. What the fuck?
No, I'm doing something for you, Jay.
Yeah.
This is for you. I'm looking something up for you.
We can't see it. It's all just white.
You will be. You will.
Well,
my point is, so you know how I lurk on Twitter, but I don't actually respond because I'm pretty antisocial most days. So I make drafts. Okay.
We still
in my last draft in my Twitter was Joaquin Phoenix and someone else just got arrested at a climate protest. And I said, the entitlement and privilege and narcissism it takes to fly halfway across the world to get arrested when arrests usually mean the end of people's lives. I've been arrested, okay? It hurt my work employment grossly. But these people can fly anywhere they want, like you said, to tell us to fucking don't you dare use plastic straws, which account for like 0.0001 of pollution in plastics. And they can get arrested no problem all the time and just walk out scot-free.
This is
And the
what
problem
else.
and the problem with the modern environmentalist movement is that their actions are not actually doing anything. I mean, if we take the fires in California, for instance, which is a constant subject, I mean, why on earth don't they actually recognize that, well, the eucalyptus trees that are growing in California are not native, they're extremely flammable. But if you say something like that you know what, the best thing California could do would be chopping down the whole forest that they have of eucalyptus and basically replant native species. As soon as you start saying that, then people are no, oh no, but you will destroy the forest. Yeah, of course, it isn't supposed to be there in the first place. I mean, with
I-
yes,
And what?
They will rid the forest of an invasive species if they do that.
yeah,
And
and
you
I
know,
mean,
you
and
guys
when it comes
ever listen to Dr. Drew?
nope,
no.
He's like Adam Carolla. You guys know him, trust me.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Yeah, he's brilliant, but he's like, we had this whole Smokey the Bear, only you can prevent forest fires. Forest fires are a natural thing. They break out the underbrush, but if California really wanted to do something, they would rid the forest of eucalyptus and underbrush. They would use the billions they give for fucking climate change to, tax people of carbon and rid the underbrush out, which is what's causing the fires.
Have any of y'all been thinking
most
we what?
forest
Okay,
dense-
everyone's talking at the same time.
Wait, Jay.
Victor first?
Oh, which is actually something that the Swedish government does on a regular basis. We're actually mandatory by law to do that because, well, forestry is the main income of the Swedish economy. So yeah, it's that is
Besides
something that
IKEA.
we do. Sorry?
Besides IKEA.
Yeah, kind of. They're actually quite conflict between IKEA and the forestry industry. But anyways,
I can imagine that since they're the
yeah.
biggest consumer of wood.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to everything that is the modern environmentalist movement, is that they are actually making things worse. They're actually more brilliant ways to actually fight climate change. I mean, we're not arguing about whether or not climate change is happening. We're arguing about the methods here, and there are much more business-friendly ways to actually combat climate change than there is actually fighting climate change in the way that environmentalists are now currently doing. But I
agree.
digress.
I kind of am arguing against man-made climate change.
Well, the thing is, there is actually some truth to it. However, the climate change itself can be reversed, and it can be actually combated in a more sensible way, which doesn't really affect people's lives.
What climate model has been even within 5 to 6% correct in the last 35 years?
Truth. That is true. I'm just merely pointing out that when it comes to the whole temperature thing.
And I'm sure we're a really crazy species. I get it.
Oh, yeah.
Like we make twin towers, we make Empire State Buildings. That has to have effects on the climate. But
one of the most effective ways to actually combat climate change, especially when it comes to carbon dioxide and everything else, would be actually to destroy many hundreds of years old trees and replant it with younger ones, which would actually feed the wood industry. And I'm sorry. Okay. Jag kommer. Okay. So it's dinner time here, so I gotta go, but I'll talk to you guys later. I'm sorry for the shortness of this.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for your contributions. We love
love
you.
you, Victor. Miss the fuck out of you.
Yeah, I missed you too, guys. So I'll talk to you later.
Rest.
Okay. Bye.
Well, going on carrying the torch on this, and of course, naturally, I spend a lot of time with Victor anyhow. As far as climate change goes, I'm not so much concerned about that, mainly because it's so fucking hot topic, weather models and all that stuff notwithstanding. There's varying degrees of disagreement, and even disagreement about how much we disagree. But as an Arkansan, natural state, I'm basically more along the lines of nature conservation, which I think we can all agree on is a good thing.
Yes.
But there's something that Victor and I talked about one night that just really cracks me up. And that's when companies do embrace green technologies in a way that actually works, and they manage to save money out of it, then that is not good enough for the enviro-fascists. Never fucking good enough. If they earn one fucking penny from it, or save a penny rather, then it is that was their goal all along, and it's bad and horrible and awful and no good, and nothing the fuck is ever good enough for these people. And that's where a lot of the environmental movement step on their own fucking dicks.
That's a damn good point. That's a damn good point.
One of the best examples of environmentalist hypocrisy, like even on the carbon subject, for instance, is say nuclear power, which is carbon neutral, and the only form of energy which is where the waste product is 100% containable. Now, people are scared of nuclear, yes, but the fact is, if environmentalists were serious about trying to not create massive amounts of gas pollution, they would be much more serious about nuclear power and investing in fusion, as opposed to solar and wind, which will never be sustainable for a massive population.
And on top of that, these systems, number one, they're not biodegradable, and they take hundreds of years to degrade, and that's with help. Otherwise, they're basically not biodegradable. Wind turbines, things like that, electric car batteries, they're non-biodegradable. That's the least sustainable thing. But Jay said the most brilliant thing is like, they have none of this has anything to do with climate or environment. If it did, they would see, wait a minute, every single one.
Oh, shit, you did this and you saved money? Fuck, high five, yo.
Right. Thank God. And I'm in every conservative would be for this, but you're right. It's really an economic. It's all about economics and communism and socialism. And these kids are brainwashed to believe that the world's going to end in 12 years. So then when the world doesn't end in 12 years, their professors tell them, well, that's because of all the hard work you did blocking street traffic, making cars idle out for 12 hours and people missing their jobs. But the one thing, and I've said this, probably, I mean, Jay, you've probably been around long enough for my rants on this. The fact that conservatives have seeded the ground of actual environmentalism, not this nonsense, but actual conservationism and environmentalism. Liberals don't go out to the parks. They don't go hunting. They don't go fishing.
No, they stay in their cities.
Ground?
I think it's because the hippies were so aggressive in the beginning that people didn't want to be associated with them at all. And all the serious environmentalists basically, if you didn't want to be associated with crazy hippies that were setting things on fire or trying to blow stuff up, but literally, I mean, people forget how violent a lot of the 60s activists were. Like, we look back at it. We look back at that era with rose-colored glasses, thinking like, oh, they were just a bunch of flower children, you know, cleaning up the rivers. And it's like, okay, yes, a lot of them were good people trying to do good things. But then there were a lot of crazy people who, just like now, thought the world was going to end. And they would literally bomb people. They would attack people in mobs. I mean, it was just as bad then as it is now. Worse in many ways.
An Outback on fire to prove a fucking point.
And they lied. They said, and you know what my favorite part about the Australian wildfires were? So they say, oh, Australia's on fire, climate change. And then we find out it's Muslim refugees and climate activists setting the Australia on fire. And you know what the climate activists said when that got proved? They said,
what?
Yeah, but it wouldn't have been as bad if climate change wouldn't have made the brush so thick.
Way to shift the goalpost. How did climate change make the brush?
Lots of land now has been scorched at a temperature that will make it very difficult for it to sustain life. And they have the fucking audacity. How dare they?
Yeah,
now,
no, really.
That Katz was talking about nuclear power. And there are other technologies. First off, we think nuclear power, and we think Chernobyl. We think 3 Mile Island. We think of these horrible accidents, and the thing is, our technology has not stayed stagnant since that point.
No, all of the disaster plans are from the 70s.
Yeah, but why did Chernobyl happen? Here's why. Socialist high bureaucracies. It was it was a bloated bureaucratic system. The bureaucrats knew nothing about Chernobyl. They knew nothing about nuclear plants. They were put there by commissars they were nephews, they were, husbands of
family values and family members.
what?
We promote family values as much as we do family members.
Right. And that's why Chernobyl happened. Name a Chernobyl in America. We have plants that rival Chernobyl's, largest output daily.
Well, I'm not far from Nuke 1. That's the Arkansas power plant at Russellville. But the thing is, when it comes to nuclear power, first off, like I said, our technology has not remained stagnant since then. Those were older reactors. But even then, Katz was talking about fusion, which is one possibility. And then everybody's all talking about, well, there's the nuclear waste that's left over. And yes, uranium fission, as we know it now, does have side effects. It creates, for example, plutonium-238. Do you know what works very well with plutonium-238?
What?
Thorium.
Yeah, thorium reactors are the future.
This is emerging nuclear power. First off, thorium by itself is not going to produce excessive amounts of radiation that could result in a meltdown phase unless it is exposed to, drumroll please, plutonium.
Really?
And the way that they have these plants, it only takes a very small amount of plutonium, which, by the way, will last for fucking ever, to set off the chain reaction in thorium. Now, let's say it gets too fucking hot, like what happened at Chernobyl, right? If it gets beyond a certain point, then the floor dumps out of the thorium reactor, getting it as far the fuck away from the plutonium as possible, thereby containing it. It's built into these systems.
So this is basically
non-polluting power that uses, it uses the nuclear waste that we produce through traditional fission methods.
So basically, the liberal argument against nuclear, what I've seen, especially now that I know that, it's kind of like the early 2000s. Wait, I didn't hear you.
The party of science is woefully behind on science, of course, probably because they haven't been studying nuclear physics and have tried to figure out how, women can have a dick.
Right, but it's the exact. If you want to draw a parallel in the early 2000s and late 90s, this is the conservative science-denying argument against stem cells. I'm a religious person. I'm not for abortion personally. I don't really care, but I don't care to talk about that right now. But stem cells, the right wing was wildly against stem cells. It's against God. It's the same as abortion, which it wasn't. But stem cells have created more medical technology than anything else. But we didn't want it because we just covered our eyes. But the left is now unquestionably the anti-science party.
Oh, totally.
Nothing they say is scientific.
They deny biology. They choose favorites. Like they believe they embrace this outdated idea that nuclear is evil and this weird idea that solar and wind are better for the environment. When in reality, the production of solar panels is incredibly toxic. And wind and solar panels, both the results of using those for power, have a tendency to destroy local wildlife. Like, how many birds get shredded by wind turbines?
I really don't give a fuck about the birds being shredded by wind turbines. I know that's going to sound cold, but the fact is, turbine technology,
it doesn't work very well.
I have shredded chicken tacos every other day, for fuck's sake.
But it's just, I agree. It's just hypocritical.
It's outdated.
Wind turbines, the cost of energy to produce one of those from ore to finished product far exceeds the amount of energy that thing is going to reap from the wind in its entire lifetime under optimal conditions.
Even if you multiply it, Bill Whittle talked about this, even if you multiplied wind turbines output by 10 to 15 times, it would take a century for it to be worth the amount of energy exported to it. And that's not even it's not even a 1/100th of what it takes to make an electric car battery.
To not mention the fact that wind power is inherently unreliable, or not, I shouldn't say unreliable, unpredictable, because it's based on weather.
Remember Trump?
Mm-hmm.
You ever hear his thing? He said, well, a man was sitting with his wife and he said, And she said, darling, I'd like to watch television tonight. And he said, hold on 1 second. And he looks out the window. He says, sorry, darling, there's no wind. Can't watch television tonight. We can't drink water tonight. Hey, Jay, can you tell Katz that he says nuclear like George W. Bush?
No.
I hate you both.
Nuclear.
Nuclear. Mm-hmm.
Nuclear.
Nuclear. I'm
Clear and new. Nuclear.
Nuclear.
There you go.
I'm still smart.
We need the galaxy brain, here.
Mm-hmm. What can I say? I have the best words and I know the most of them.
He said it first. You just didn't hear him.
I know.
Yeah, just cock over now. You hear me?
Look at that pup.
Puppy.
Yeah, this is
Neiman.
Usually he doesn't pay much attention to the television, but it really surprised me a while ago because when Victor was talking, he finally he's like, holy shit, that's Dad! And he's just sitting there staring.
Mm-hmm. Look, we've got 2 black dogs.
See? And people call us racist.
Mm-hmm. Well, you are. But not as racist as MAGA there.
Technically, we own the dogs, so, it may not be the best way to
Oh my God. You guys are both black slavers.
No, to be honest, if you shaved her, she's pink. I cut her one time when I was getting burrs out, and she's white. She's just black hair.
So she's like Rachel. You're saying that your dog is Rachel Dolezal?
How dare you? She's more of a Shaun White.
She's pretending. She's pretending to be black.
Okay, yeah, you got that. You got that one. I'm with you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the last thing I want to say about the whole environmental thing is it kind of always ends up circling back because, there are legitimate issues and then there are issues that are not being addressed. Like whenever I've talked to my dad,
the environmental movement is fucking up.
It is.
They have made the climate change model, and it might be right. I don't know.
It's not.
I'm saying whether it's right or wrong doesn't matter. They should be focusing on these secondary issues.
They should.
I like, for example, water that's not fucking polluted.
Mm-hmm.
I like being able to go out, inlands. And those are not at odds with getting this shit cleaned up. But they take this crazy-ass idea, whether or not it's right, and they come up with even crazier-ass, half-ass solutions to it that don't do anything. That's not helping their cause.
And if they were serious about it, the way to really combat climate change, it would do more. If you banned every single piece of plastic the United States uses, we're no longer allowed to use plastic. It wouldn't even do a billionth of the job that nuking China off the map would do.
And this is actually what...
It's economic warfare against us. What it really is they hate America. The two, in my opinion, the two biggest voices right now that I can see for environmentalism are Tucker Carlson and Mark Stein. The two of them want Flint. They want us to stop with the wars in the Middle East and places that we can't put on a map. They want us to bring it on back home, clean Flint's water system, stop massive migration here, which is literally devastating our deserts. Our desert ecosystems have been so overwhelmed and destroyed by mass migration from Mexico and the garbage they bring. Did you know this? Jay, check this out. Tucker did a whole thing. I'll send it to you. Tucker did a whole thing on it. He brought this environmentalist in who's like a famous environmentalist. He was one of the founders of the Sierra Nevada Club.
Oh, okay.
And they're coming in and they're destroying desert ecosystems because they dump all their waste. When you have millions of people crossing the border into the desert, people throwing dead carcasses with their clothes and their plastics and their bottles full of piss and all of it. It's destroying desert ecosystems. And we think of the desert as like, well, it's sand, cactuses, cacti. What could you really do to hurt it? They are devastating our desert ecosystems. Google
Deserts are very important to ecology
Yeah.
because they store a massive amount of carbon that would otherwise be out in the environment, like old carbon. And then when you disturb the environment, it releases it. But even notwithstanding that, there's all kinds of wildlife and amazing organisms that exist out there, which we have yet to even completely understand. We learn so much from like literally just different kinds of cacti.
Franco's arm.
What?
It's also the habitat of James DeFranco's arm.
It is. But this is what I want to tie this up. This is what I will say about it. So I had a conversation that I keep having with my dad, which is kind of frustrating about the whole environmental movement at this point, which is that, and there's no real counter to this, which is that our solutions aren't realistic because environmentalism as it currently stands really only includes North America and, well, not even North America, America and Canada and Western Europe. It does not include China, Russia, or India. Really doesn't include Brazil. And these are all the major polluters of the world. What's the figure? Like if all of Europe and all of America went completely carbon neutral, we would still only reduce the output, like we would only like at most reduce it by like what 20% or something like that.
Yeah, it's less than 20.
Even bolder here. I'm just gonna drop a huge fucking set on this one. Where the fuck do they think the greener technologies are developed and designed?
Here.
And where is the financing coming for it?
Here.
Now, be capitalists.
Right, exactly. And you know what? This is funny. Is when everything was polluted and the citizens were revolting and no one wanted to live in soot. You know who cleaned up all this? It wasn't the government. It wasn't environmentalists. It was the businesses. And now I just want to say one thing before we go. I pulled this up, and this is from 2007. 2007. Now I know you two are much younger than me, but that was 12 whole years ago. I was old enough to be your father at that point. Now, this is true. And I also want to say that we take this at a point where, like your dad, for instance, who, by the way, Katz's dad and mom saved me when I cut my wrist by accident. Not suicidal, but they're brilliant. But what we do is we take their original premise. The world's going to end in 12 years. They've been saying that for decades. But here's one for you, for the environmentalists. This is by Rosa P. Oakes. She's world-renowned. This is 12 years ago. This is just the first one I pulled up. And by the way, Google search, you know how you type in Farrah and you hope old J comes up, Farrell J, you know, or Denzel Washington. It won't let you do that. You have to actually type this in. But here's just the first one. Driving towards the U.S.-Mexican border in the wee hours, blah, blah, blah. Immigration, whether authorized or unauthorized, has occurred throughout the world. This has brought devastation. This has brought devastation on over 12,000 species in not just the Sonoran Desert. And wait, hold on. And by the way, this is 120,000 miles, okay? And they've caused ecosystems to crash. 120,000 miles is square miles. That's a large space. For them to cause this type of devastation, hold on. Well, there's article after article. But the environmentalists will say, but we still we have to welcome, they'll quote that bullshit Statue of Liberty thing. If they were really environmentalists, they would stop letting these people do this. They don't care about the environment. Yeah. It's just like the Justice Democrats say, the Green New Deal isn't about the environment, it's about socialism.
And even when it is
for a moment that the Statue of Liberty itself is at Ellis Island, which was an authorized port of entry for immigrants, which implies that the rest of it was not a port of entry. Secondly, you really can't run a nation, especially when it comes to international law. You really can't run two separate nations where you can just run across the border. I mean, shit, we see federal crimes happen when people commit a state crime and cross federal lines or cross state lines. Now, imagine that with countries. Could you imagine the kind of problems that you would have on places that are on the border?
Especially when
Exactly.
different countries have different laws, and then I mean, it would effectively mean the end.
Kill someone in one country and then just fucking do the Macarena across to the other side, and bitch, you can't touch me until they catch on.
And look at the immigration policy when the Statue of Liberty got put in versus that poem that was put in much later. Look at the immigration policy back then. It wasn't what they think it was.
It was pretty base.
Actually, funny thing about jumping across borders like that, we have a city here in Arkansas, kind of, that also is on the border of Texas, Texarkana. This is hilarious here, but they have a shared courthouse because it's the county seat for the county here in Arkansas and the respective county in Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have a shared courthouse. So someone would get convicted on one side. It happened many a time that they would just take off to the other side of it where Arkansas police couldn't fucking touch them.
Oh my God.
Or like when the Mexicans ran through, remember with Andrew Jackson, same thing happened.
Yeah.
He wasn't, you know.
Oh my God.
Can I say something?
It doesn't work. So you have like a big fucking wall in between them.
I had a really funny thing to say to somebody who was talking to me about immigration that was on the left, one of these open border people.
I'm
I was
scared.
going to say, you know what? You're right. We need diversity. It's important. Diversity is our strength, after all. It's Jay's strength. It's Katz's strength. That's why we're so strong. I mean, Jay can lift 3 buildings. I can lift 2.5. Katz can lift 40, 50 after he's had a few poppers. And and so I'm just kidding. That's me who does them. No. So
straight people don't do poppers for some reason. Something which we will discuss.
Why
at some
don't
point.
they do poppers? You're the solid peppers and they got the cheese in them. They're wrapped in bacon and deep fried. They're fucking awesome.
You are
Yeah,
so
but I'm
southern,
kosher.
Jay. It's disgusting.
I'm kosher.
Because when you shit afterward, I understand why they don't do it.
I'm kosher. I can't have that. No, but the
We'll
reason I
give you
say
like
poppers
steak
thing,
dinner or something.
Katz and I were reading an article about straight people not doing poppers, so I always say he does poppers now. But anyway, my point was, say this to them: if diversity is our strength, and diversity doesn't mean not white, which they always say, diversity doesn't mean non-white. Okay, then I believe that right now, given the fact that pretty soon white people aren't just going to be the minority in Europe and here, they're going to be an ultra minority within 50 years. I think that we should be importing people into this country based on the birth rates, because diversity is our strength. And so given the birth rates of a certain race, that's how many of those can come in. Why not? If diversity is our strength.
Hilarious on this note. Okay, now first off, I'm going to go ahead and give a disclaimer to the audience, especially any kind of hecklers that say, "Oh, I'm against immigration and all that." Bitch, I'm in an international marriage. We are currently working with USCIS to make sure that we have our I's dotted and our T's crossed, because that's the right fucking thing to do. And then secondly, with this idea that there's this idea that the United States is not a diverse nation, I can tell you from a European perspective that we do multiculturalism fucking fantastically. In fact, one of the things that Victor is known for saying is that Europe could really stand to take a look at how the United States has handled this. And to say that we're not diverse and that we're just some kind of monoculture with these just horribly oppressed minorities is those would be the words of someone that is utterly ignorant of how the rest of the world operates.
And how America operates. People are
a fucking good job of it, and I think we need to take a little bit of fucking credit.
Go ahead, Katz.
I was to say, like, people have these very broad ideas about what Europe, what America, what history, everything. No one is examining reality anymore. Everyone's just responding to hashtags and very just boiled down. I'm officially, I mean, I use hashtags ironically, but as far as like people who take them seriously, no, if you could summarize your entire movement in a hashtag, unless it's like response to a specific event, no, if your ideology can be summarized in a hashtag, you're not thinking deep enough about it, in my opinion. Like, there is too much going on.
But the thing about diversity, and I just want to say, you won't be able to see it here, but there's a show called Dear White People. And,
oh God.
You won't be able to see it here, I doubt, but maybe.
It's all blurry.
Is that
Yeah.
your dick? God, dude.
It's all right. So it's 8 black people and a Chinese broad.
Mm-hmm.
The most diverse show of the year.
Do they really call
They're
it
all
that?
black.
Well,
How
here's
is it diverse?
this is the thing about diversity before we go.
That's like if you, me, and Jay said that this was the most diverse podcast.
Well, geographically, we're very diverse.
But
I know. But
if an all-black cast is diverse, then what is diversity?
no, well, literally, the way they get around this and what you were saying earlier about diversity is because they shift the goalpost at that point and talk about they will make it about something else. Where they'll say that it's really about historical perspectives and narratives and well, if you look at the history of television, it's been overwhelmingly white. So this is a diverse. Yeah, it's all masturbation. It's all bullshit, and none of it means anything. But
racism is power plus privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the definition of someone that wants to be a racist, but they're a minority.
Yeah, they found
and they are racist. They're all fucking
They
racist.
want to be racist, but not have to deal with the stigma of being called a racist, which is, by the way, what they fucking are.
Talk all day about white people this, white people that. Oh, typical white Karen. She's a Karen. She's a white this, white that. Okay, you're the racist, by the way, because if I sat there all day saying, oh, typical blacks, there's a black Sharonda, typical blacks, and yeah, I'm sure that'll be fucking. They're going to take that little quote of me.
Oh, yeah, they are.
But the point is, if I did that, what would happen to me?
You would be canceled.
I've reported so many of these people for being just eradicate whiteness, kill all white people.
When I report on those, Twitter is finally fucking listening when I report on those.
Really? They're not for me.
They're doing it. Apparently, Apparently, they know I just pull that minority card out
rain down on my blackness. Here's my oppression raining down on you, Jay Dance.
So when you say that you're not racist, that you're prejudiced, or you try to say that racism isn't about you can't be racist against white people, it's the equivalent of saying I don't shop at Target, I shop at Target. And that's the last thing I'm going to say about this, because that's just a rephrasing.
That wraps it up lastly with pretty little bow.
Everyone, welcome to Deep Fry Smoothie. Join us again next week. Whenever we do this again, it's Matt. It's insanity. Oh God, what is Jupiter doing? What is he doing?
He's putting on that French maid outfit.
That's for the OnlyFans. That's not for this broadcast. Oh no. I don't know what's happening right now.
My culture.
Where's your hat, Kat? Jay, what do they say about guys who don't wear hats?
My culture is like your costume.
That's
appropriated.
Oh my God! All right, everyone.
Otherwise, cats. People are going to think Cats has the thing for chaps and chaps.
I mean, I'm not saying anything one way or the other. Thank you, everyone.
So after walking down that hallway, we need to put you on a bulk or something because now I know what they mean by assless chaps.
Jesus. All right, I'm stopping before this gets out of control. Everyone, love you. Bye-bye.